You've come to the right place. If you're a course creator looking to build more impact, income, and freedom, LMScast is the #1 podcast for course creators just like you. I'm your guide, Chris Badgett. I'm the co-founder of the most powerful tool for building, selling, and protecting engaging online courses called LifterLMS. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome back to another episode of LMScast. I'm joined by a special guest, Melissa Love. She's from the Design Co. and her membership.
Design Space.
Oh, thank you for correcting me. The designspace.co. And then she has a membership site called the Marketingfixcom, which is amazing. It's actually, in my opinion right now, it's the most beautiful LifterLMS site I've ever seen. And we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but Melissa's a designer, and one of the reasons I wanted to bring her in front of you, the course creators and membership site builders out there, is you have just such a strong design aesthetic that is so good. How can you help non-designers start thinking a little more about design? And before you get into it, I just want to say, I heard this thing once that in a business, there's the hipster, the hacker, and the hustler. So in LifterLMS, I'm like the hustler, Thomas is the hacker, and we have a team bigger than that. But we've never been super strong on the hipster, which is the design part. And then I see work like Melissa does, and I'm like, this is the hipster, the design talent. How can non-designers level up?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think what I find again and again, because I have online courses where I teach students how to build their own website. And what has normally happened in the past is, and this might resonate with anyone who's ever built a website, is that people just install a theme and start designing. And the theme looks pretty good when you load it up, and then you put your own images in, then you kind of maybe change some fonts to your brand font, but you don't maybe have a plan. So you leave some of the fonts that came with the theme. And before you know it, you've got something that's just a bit jumbled, and you're like, why doesn't it look as good as the demo? And it's really demoralizing. And I completely understand why people do that. But when I start a project, it starts on paper and we flesh out.
Like boxes and wireframe kind of thing? Or what do you mean?
No. Way before that, we come up with a brand kind of guide, and it has every font, every size for mobile, for tablet. It has what a button will look like. It will have a style tile. It'll have a rough layout. And we make this brand guide before we go anywhere near a live site. We then turn the brand guide into, certainly I always do a homepage wireframe, which does start off with like little boxes on paper, but then I fully design it out in Illustrator so that it's a finished article for the client to sign off. And only then do we start to go over and work in the browser.
That is awesome. And you always have, like, I'm looking at the Marketing Fix right now, and I'm actually logged in looking at it, and you have, like, there's space. Things aren't compressed. Like, how do you think about space? I mean, it's even in your name, the design space. Like, what white space is a concept? How can a non-designer start to grasp it?
Well, I think a lot of people are quite scared of white space. They have a natural desire to fill it, that things don't look gappy. But white space actually is, I think of it as expensive real estate. It really gives a feeling of luxury. It stops people from feeling overwhelmed. So I'm a big advocate of negative space. And I have, and I'm designing on a big monitor. So compared to a lot of people, to the consumer, to the end user, it will probably feel more compact. But for me, I love that feeling of space. And I think people shouldn't be afraid of it. I see people who are very tempted. They're like, I need to stick something in that gap, so I'll put a design element. Or I'd rather use subtle variations in section color to kind of break the page up, but then give lots of space.
That's cool. And I think some of the reason people get stuck in it is they feel like if it's not above the fold, they might miss it. But I mean, your sales page for the Marketing Fix, once I just read the headline, I just want to keep going. You have tons of white space. Like, even there's stuff I need to get to below the fold. But how do you get people to not be afraid of that, or ensure that the design and the copywriting is going to make people want to go deeper?
Not enough white space makes people anxious, and I've split tested it with clients who are adamant that they want less white space, and we've split tested it, and there's a much higher bounce rate on usually I've never had it come out the other way. There's always a higher bounce rate on the cramped feeling page.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So
Yeah,
even
you can prove it scientifically. Like, fine, split test it. I'll take all the padding out. Good luck with that.
well, I love that that tip for people building websites for clients. Let's look at that for a little bit. What's been your journey as a designer, website builder, when working with clients? That's totally a pro move. To the client is not always right, and let's do a split test to let the data like just prove my point or whatever. That's like that means you've been in the industry a while to get to that point. What has your freelancing or agency evolution been like?
Well, I started out actually at the age of 13. My parents were graphic designers, and
Oh, wow.
computers hadn't been invented. So my mum literally had an IBM Scalextrics with like the golf ball fonts, and then my dad would cut that up and stick it on a board, then take it off to be blown up at the print shop to be made into a plate. Then he would bring back the blown up thing, and then he would cut it up and rearrange it into whatever it was. If you were making a form, he would literally do it with a ruler and pen. So it's kind of old school. And I was working in a business from quite a young age, and I thought it was so dull. There was no way I was ever going to be in that business. But I did have a really good kind of understanding of typography and font families and hierarchies and all the kind of terminology that someone in print would use in print design. So, and once you can do that, kind of, you never end up not being able to do that, because people are always like, can you design a wedding invitation for me? Hey, you're good at design. Can you do posters? So I kind of always kept my hand in. And then I went off and I did all sorts of things in the travel industry and completely different industries until I had kids. And then, of course, I was like, maybe I should work from home. And I kind of was freelancing, built myself a website, and kind of people kept saying, can you do that for me? And I was like, oh yeah, I'll have a go. It's like the really early, I was sorry about my pets running around.
It's all good.
It was the early days of the internet. So I think I probably used something like Wix or Moonfruit to build my first site. Then WordPress exploded and I was like, that's really cool. So I built some terrible WordPress sites, and then I kind of really started to develop my skills. Really, because I was spending a lot of money on people on coding, and I was very small at that time, and getting help from people who were good with CSS. And I thought, enough, you need to learn this properly. So I then spent a lot of time taking courses and getting help and just learning through trial and error what works. And that's a good.
What year are we at around this point? Like what
this
year?
This is about 11 years ago, I'd say.
Wow.
10 years ago, I was probably just starting to get into WordPress and starting to really kind of grow my knowledge. But of course, there's so much now that you kind of accumulate over a 10-year period in terms of, data testing. I've got clients who are adamant that they want their site to look perfect on a specific monitor type. And I'm like, great, let's look at the data. And then you kind of, you grow such a knowledge that you can confidently say, this is the right thing for you. This is not the right thing for you. And yeah, so over time, it's been quite a long haul, but I've been WordPress specialist now for years, and I love it.
So what was your client evolution? Did you what types of clients did you work with? Do you work with?
Well, I had a really lucky break. I was designing websites for anyone. My first website was for a pet shop. My second one was for funeral directors, and I was charging £295, which is about $300. I thought
I sold my first website for $300 in 2002.
I thought I'd made it.
Yeah.
And a friend came down, who's still one of my best friends, came down for the weekend, and she was a photographer, and she said, look at my terrible website. I paid some guy in the States like $5,000 for this, but I hate it. And I was like, God, it really is bad. $5,000, that's insane. So I kind of built her a quick website over the weekend, and we were together. And she went back and said, right, I'm on this photography course at this really prestigious training academy, and there's loads of people in my course, all with no or terrible websites. I'm going to go back and tell them. So she rang me 2 days later and went, my friend wants a website from you, and I've told you charge £1,000. And I said, are you mad? I can't charge someone that money. That's right. Crazy. She's like, end of discussion. So I did that website. And then she then referred me on, and I'd done about 3 or 4 people. And then the owner of that training academy, I met her, and she went, right, would you come and be a mentor on our kind of flagship course and teach people about branding and design? So I then had a really steady stream of quite high paying clients. By this point, I think I was at £3,000, and I was starting
What year are we at here?
Oh, so this is probably about 7 years ago.
Okay.
So I was probably just about able to get the words out. Yes, I charged £3,000.
And
And
were you meeting these clients in person, or picking them up through the internet and never meeting them in person, or both?
well, at that point, I was traveling up to the other end of the country kind of 4 times a year to meet these special, in each intake of this special group. And they were all photographers. So I started to become quite specialist in that niche. I
Photography.
started to get asked to talk at photography conferences. Then a couple of photographers who I really admired, I met them at a photography convention. They're from the States. They're very famous. Asked me to do their branding and their website, and that was a really big deal. I didn't understand how big a deal it was till they launched it live on Creative Live.
Okay.
And I was like driving down, we were moving house, so I was driving down to the other end of the country with my kids, and I saw I've got like 100 missed calls, what's going on? And I finally got back onto the internet. I had 3,000 inquiries. It was insane. So I had to get my kind of CMS guy to write a little script so I could bulk reply to them all, just to say, oh my God, thank you for contacting me. And that was the beginning of craziness then. Those two people, that photography training school and the photographers, who I'm still good friends with all of these people, they've been kind of like my fairy godmothers. Since then I've had a waiting list of 6 months to a year since forever.
So what's your team like? Like, or what kind of roles, or do you solo operate, or how do you do it?
Well, I have lots. I've maybe 3 or 4 people who play a part-time role in my business, but I'm struggling because with launching the membership, that's really taken off in a big way. So I'm about to hire a full-time VA, which I'm kind of a little bit scared of, but I desperately know I need to do it. So I have someone who covers all our support tickets because we sell WordPress themes. Yep. And I have, and she's amazing, and that's been a big leap forward. That's not how I start my day anymore, by answering support tickets. I have someone who deals with day-to-day inquiries, and occasionally I get people, and I have I don't take many clients anymore, probably 5 or 6 a year. There's a lot more I want to concentrate on now, so I've radically, which is a bit scary, radically reduced my client workload.
So it's been clients, software, and now a membership site. Like that's a lot going on. And tell me about your relationship with Divi.
So I was a really early adopter. So I was using Elegant Themes before Divi. And when they released Divi, I was like, what is this magic? It's amazing. I've been hand coding so much stuff, which is good. Like, it's great to have those skills. And I started using it. I was like, this is crazy good. This is so easy. And I had been selling templates for a couple of for ProPhoto, which is a photography specific WordPress theme, and for another platform, which is the kind of drag and drop. Back then it was a Flash platform called Show It. It's now kind of amazing, completely different proposition. And I thought, what if you could export some kind of child theme? And I hadn't really seen whether this was a thing. So I actually wrote to Nick Roach and I said, Nick, you don't know who I am, but this is what I do. And how would you feel if I was to publicly sell, like package up a child theme, write a script to auto install it? And he was like, yeah, go for it. That sounds great. So I was the first person to ever do that, to sell any kind of Divi product.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
so I kind of announced it in this group, in the big like group full of 40,000 people, and people went kind of crazy. They were like, $150, you're insane. I could build something like that. And I'm like, go on then. And of course, your average person cannot build a 12-page, beautiful looking website.
No.
It's going to take them days. And I'm saying, look, you can press one button and you'll have this beautiful website for $150 with all the pages, with everything, all the demo content right there. And you just have to kind of replace the images and text. And people are like, some people are like, oh, I get that. That's amazing. Other people are like, this is a scam. Who would pay for that? And I'm like, well, you're not my customer. So it kind of was this crazy moment where people suddenly went, what? And then probably 6 months later, it exploded. And then there was a marketplace. But I was the one who kind of dropped the bomb, and it was hilarious. I mean, I knew there would be some major reaction to it. But Nick and the team were always super supportive. And I've met them. I went to meet them last time they had a team meeting in Europe, and they're just a really great community, and I've always kept in touch with them as a community.
Yeah, the Divi community is really amazing. Help me with my math. How many child themes do you have? Are there like 50? I'm on the design or the designspace.co right now, looking at your themes page.
I think we've got 15 for Divi, maybe.
15, cool. Yeah,
you'll see they're heavily photography biased, but I've got a couple which are less so. I do quite a lot of WooCommerce stuff.
doing work for photography clients, I mean, you're a hardcore designer, so you're not that intimidated. But if I was a website, and when I design websites, if I got a photography client, which I had before, I know their design aesthetic and their need is they're going to be tough to please. Basically, you really got to nail it. But maybe I'm thinking about that wrong.
Well, this is what happens when you become a specialist, and I'm a really big fan of niching down. It's a topic I talk about a lot when I'm teaching people. The value of that is it allows you to position yourself as the expert, and then you become the least risk choice for somebody. So that's stage one. Like if you're talking about some guy you met who happens to work in an IT department and builds websites on the side, or like your brother's cousin who builds websites, which is how a lot of people end up finding someone to build their first website, they will have some knowledge, but actually I can phone up the operations director of the UK's main photo printing lab, because I know him, and say, hey, I'm not happy with your API. This isn't really working for the way it integrates with Gravity Forms. Can you sort that out? And he'll go, yeah, no problem. So I have an intimate knowledge of everything a photographer needs in a website. So nice. That's stage one. And you could have that and have terrible design aesthetic, and you could hire a graphic designer to at least kind of design the front end. But then I've got to the point where my sites are a bit out, they're different.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful. And I've got to the point where people aren't really they're saying, do what you want to do. I want you to let your imagination run wild, because I want a site that's really striking, that stops people in their tracks. And then that's great, because then I've got a client today who basically went, do whatever you like. I trust you completely. Do the branding process, and then we work together, do the layout. And she's like, yep, absolutely no changes, just build it. So if you can have the expert, the technical trust, but then you have a design aesthetic that people want because you are known for that, then that's the double whammy. And that does take a long time to kind of get there. It's taken me 10 years to get to that point. So
you don't just pick a niche; you have to operate in it over time for a long time.
And I do really hustle. Like I go and speak at 5 or 6 photography conferences a year. Some are small. I go and speak to small groups and large groups. I'm not out there being a kind of superstar, but most wedding and portrait photographers would possibly have heard of me. But I don't ever slack off. I'm still showing up at events and shaking hands and networking with people and writing guest posts here and doing podcasts. And I love that, because you've got to marketing your business, right?
Yeah, marketing never sleeps.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about the journey into doing course or membership sites. Did it start with doing it for clients, or how did you get into that type of platform and building and designing those?
Oh, well, I had a site that I built for someone who I still work with, who uses Lifter now, and I think we used LearnDash, and it was agony. It was ugly. This is like 7 or 8 years ago. Everything I wrote so much CSS. I think like a record number of lines of CSS just to make it halfway nice.
Okay.
And I found it frustrating and clunky. And this is before I was using Divi, so that was why there was so much CSS. And then I got called upon I ended up using a theme, an LMS theme off ThemeForest for another company.
I used that one too. Was it called Academy?
Well, the site is called the Academy.
Oh, okay. Well, there was an Academy theme on ThemeForest from a long time ago. That's how I got into it. I used that theme, and that was the starting point. But go ahead.
And then I can't remember. I think it was for my own site when I first started selling courses. So 3 or 4 years ago, I launched Site School, it's been subsumed now into the Marketing Fix. But because I was selling all these themes, people were like, great, I love your theme, but I don't really know what I'm doing. I thought, I'm going to do a course, which was pretty much, this is how you customize a theme, and this is how you buy hosting. So it was like the A to Z of, how to build a website. And that was really good. Probably I've had about 500 or 600 people through that over the last few years. And I used Lifter. And for the first iteration of it, I was letting the defaults, still writing CSS. And then I then got a friend of mine, Sean Barton, who makes lots of Divi modules and stuff, the CPT layout injector guy. He very kindly tweaked something, and suddenly I could start to build layouts so I'm a shortcode hacker. So, I'm always asking group, why isn't there a shortcode?
Right,
I want to drop it into a code module and then style it with Divi. So all the people have I do the same with WooCommerce. Any auto-generated page that's generated because it has a shortcode, I'm like, brilliant. I can just style that however I like. So I took exactly that approach. Plus I was using in Divi, if you're familiar with it, they now have a themer, so you can create a template for any custom post type. I was using a plugin to do that, but then was adding in, I've now added us advanced custom fields. So there's really nothing I can't build and have to have it auto-generate. I now pretty much can build everything I want to using the Divi builder. So I'm inside, and I've got a building environment for Lifter that pleases me aesthetically. I can get there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you remember, like, when you were starting the site school, what you were doing? Like, you were looking for tools. Like, how did you do you happen to remember how you find us at LifterLMS, or what was it like at that time?
Well, I remembered finding out about it, and even then there was a small group which I remember joining because I had a lot of questions. And I think I liked that the core, that I could play around with it for free to start with, to see if I could push it to do what I wanted to do. And I was switching this client over from LearnDash, and we quickly worked out, actually, he had quite a good tech stack. He had some budget. He didn't mind buying like WP Fusion. I don't think it was around then. We hacked it all together anyway, and it worked. So obviously when it came to build my site, I was like, I'm going to use that. And then I had a little wobble because I hadn't really got my head around the membership. Well, I had memberships that included lots of mini courses. But when I recently built the Marketing Fix, I just played around with it. I was thinking, should I go a bit more fully membery with like MemberPress or something? But I couldn't see that it provided any advantage whatsoever.
Before we get into the Marketing Fix, there's an interesting debate, or I'm just trying to think of how to frame the question. Like, loosely, the way I think about it is plugins are for functionality. Like, LifterLMS is mostly functionality, and our design is really generic, and then hopefully themes come along and talented people like yourself to design. In some ways, it's intimidating is the wrong word, but to know like a really good designer like you is like using our tool. I'm like, oh, the default design is really not that good. It's because we're mostly like the back end, the functionality, the courses, the reporting, the progression tracking, the user accounts, all that stuff is where we shine. But we live in a WordPress ecosystem where theme products and page builders and designers like yourself can make it beautiful, like you definitely did with the Marketing Fix. How do you think about, whether it's LifterLMS or WooCommerce or whatever, how do you think about the different roles we all play to make a project come together successfully from both a functionality and a design standpoint?
I think what the basic theme, the basic functionality of something like Lifter looks like, it almost doesn't matter anymore, because I've found a way using custom post types and tools that work with custom post types to be in the building environment I want, in the design environment I want, which is in the Divi builder.
Yep.
So I would say there's probably two or three things I have to style. I have to style the login form with CSS and the dashboard course grid, which as you know, I have on numerous occasions talked about the dashboard and how it looks, but everything else is built in Divi.
Yeah.
So I've got, and that was.
So you're just using us for the functionality.
100%.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's why, and I've even built my own couple of shortcodes before you had them. Like there were no next lesson, so I kind of hacked the shortcode together for those, and so I was using that in a layout. But that's so they're nearly all there now. Nearly all the shortcodes that have appeared have really, each time it's solved a design problem that I used to have to either write something into the functions PHP, or so it's taken slowly. These problems have disappeared, and my last, there's a kind of one or two little things I'd love, things like beautiful grid displays like the grid or essential grid don't pick up the less certain custom post types. Once things like that start to happen, if that API kind of that becomes, it won't matter then. And that's what I love, because then I can teach people. I can I've got a theme nearly ready to go, which is going to come out in Divi and Elementor for an interface with free LifterLMS, so people can at least not have to kind of code and not have to use all the auto-generated interface. Not, and that sounds bad, like I'm saying it's terrible.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
People, anytime someone has to start inspecting code and that they're not a professional designer, that's not good for me as someone who sells themes.
Right. That's
awesome.
I'm
always looking for ways to avoid that scenario.
Yeah, that's great.
For your average user who is building their own website.
you're kind of a unicorn in the sense that you know, heavy design skills, but can also get into the development and PHP and all that stuff too. That's super you know, valuable combination that a lot of people, they pick a side. But to be holistic and to also like use the products you create yourself, it just gives you an incredible advantage and skill set. How did the marketingfix.co come about? And first, like, what's the elevator pitch of what it is?
Yeah. So I noticed, so everything has come about just from demand from my community. So I was selling themes, but then realized that people actually wanted some education on how to build a website. Then I was teaching people to build websites, and I noticed that they weren't really then using their website as a marketing tool. So people were really overwhelmed by all the things they felt they had to do. They had to know about Facebook and Instagram, and they weren't using email marketing. They didn't have their Facebook pixel in, all the kind of standard things that I do with a custom client. People were just like building their sites and they looked lovely, and then that was it. They were just like a pretty shop window. And I kept posting. I've got quite a big Facebook group that I use as a kind of driver for a lot of growth, and nobody knew any of this stuff. I was starting to kind of do little lives in my Facebook group, and people were like, "Oh, mind blown! I didn't know you can do that." So I just thought, do you know what? I want a kind of fairly low cost membership where people feel really supported. And my elevator pitch is one thing once a month. We do it together. I give them all the swipe files, everything they need. Then we move on together as a community. So people don't feel overwhelmed.
Who's the ideal customer? Like, how would you describe them?
My ideal customer is a creative business, probably a one-man team or couple. A lot of them are photographers, though that's changing. I'm branching out a bit. And it will be someone who's either built their own website or they've had it built for them and that they kind of know how to use it, but they really feel like they need to get to grips with it. And it will be somebody who hasn't done a lot of reading around the subject of digital marketing or online marketing. Their main marketing plan is kind of organically and slightly randomly posting on social media and wondering how they can drive traffic. So they're not really leveraging any of the tech that's out there that can help you with that.
That's awesome. And what tools did you use? What is kind of in the stack that makes the Marketing Fix possible?
Oh, okay. So obviously Divi, ActiveCampaign. That's and okay, you've probably seen my colleague KPC around.
Yeah. She's an ActiveCampaign marketing automation person, right?
Yeah. She's like amazing. In fact, well, our kids go to school together. So she lives literally around the corner from me. And I came home from a mastermind group in Nashville. And it was this high level kind of mastermind. And I just, when they say never be the smartest person in the room, I was literally the dumbest person in the room.
I did the same thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be here. But I learned so much.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means. So I kind of came back from that. And I said to Kay one day, we were sitting around the kitchen table and I was like, I need to find a really clever person who can just go and learn everything there is to know about Facebook ads and email marketing. And she was like, yeah, I reckon I can have a go at that. And she was like, she's a teacher. She's like marking exam papers and had a background in maths and computing. And I was like, okay, well, have at it. So she worked really closely with me for a year, just really kind of honing her knowledge and kind of beating our systems into shape. And now she's, I can barely get any time on her diary. She's so sought after as this kind of world-renowned expert. She's just amazing. So she's driven a lot of this integration. So we tie it all together with WP Fusion, and that literally makes everything work, from conditional formatting to dripping lessons to the way that our ActiveCampaign rewards people when they complete lessons and courses. And then obviously our best performing students, they drive our Facebook audiences. It's all so deeply integrated that it's allowed us to make massive strides in terms of the way we advertise and the way we target people.
So correct me if I misspeak or if I miss anything. You said, obviously you're using WordPress, you're using Divi, you're using LifterLMS, you're using WP Fusion, you're using WooCommerce.
Yeah.
Commerce. And you're using ActiveCampaign on the back. You're using Facebook groups. Is there there's a Facebook group that you use for marketing or just general community, and then a smaller one of like your members, right? Yeah. And anything else in the stack? Any other key plugins or anything?
We use Zoom to run our member webinars, and that's really great. And they're not really integrated with anything. I've thought about embedding it. I mean, my ideal clients do hang out on Facebook because they are lone workers and they like the community aspect I visually like the way, because when I'm teaching something quite visual, Facebook groups for me are better than on-site forums. But I am about to build a site for a friend who is building. It'll be with Lifter. I'm looking for. She doesn't know anything about it yet, but she needs a serious Facebook-like forum. And I know the new integration coming up.
Yeah.
With, I can't remember what it's called. Well, but Buddy
Groups?
something. No, not your. There's a new integration you're about to launch.
Buddy Boss.
Yes,
It's not us. It's another company. They make Buddy Boss, which is a social network for WordPress that has LifterLMS integration, and it's really beautiful. It's a nice social network for your WordPress website.
Yeah, well, that's gonna be for something like 25,000 members. So I'm really gonna push it with that next build, I think, to see how far I can really push a high volume site. So.
Well, I've seen LifterLMS being used on like 40,000 member sites. Lifter can hang in there, and
yeah, is that David Molnar?
Not that one. I mean, there's more. Yeah. There's another one that I don't. Yeah. I'm aware of him, but I didn't know his numbers or whatever. But yeah. And what do you use for hosting? I'm just curious. Or what do you maybe use a couple different? What?
No, I'm with SiteGround at the moment.
SiteGround, awesome. Well, I want to get into the stack. I mean, obviously, the Marketingfix.co has beautiful design, and but what I loved most about it, and this is really the brilliance of Melissa Love. You've said it in different ways, which is you put your customer at the center of your business, not your product. So when your customers needed training on how to use your child themes and whatnot, you created training. So you keep surrounding your ideal customer with things to support them and help them achieve their goals. So when I look inside your membership site, you have courses, library, fixes, calendar, and perks. Can you kind of go over the stack of what all those things are and why you chose them?
Well, I've got to admit, I've had some really good help in terms of, I belong to a couple of memberships myself, one of them is the Membership Academy by the Membership Guys. And
they're great. They're fantastic.
Amazing. So I went to their live event in last September. And I was kind of because I've got a few clients I was building membership sites for, thinking, yeah, that's not for me. I'm happy teaching my open cart, evergreen courses. And I left after that week and going, I'm starting a membership site.
So they inspired you to pull the trigger.
Well, right. So this isn't what I've been feeling for a while, that I wanted to roll up all my courses into a membership, but I didn't quite know how to do it. But that week at their event, I kept meeting people. Like every time you went for a coffee break, you'd meet some amazing person. I'd say, what do you do? And they'd go, I teach people how to win ultimate Frisbee. And I'd be like, really? How many members have you got? Oh, 800. And you'd be like doing the maths going, that's amazing.
Well, you like niches, right?
Yeah. So this was a room full of people, like really niche experts who were making great money and were really passionate about what they did and had these amazing communities. And I knew that my community, I wanted to transform it and really kind of make it more inspirational. So I kind of went away from that thinking, so I joined their membership. And I joined another membership, which has been really instrumental, which I love, called Atomic. And that is Andrew and Pete, who are kind of brilliant marketers. And so the best of both of those dashboards, I was shamelessly stole ideas. Like I love the subscribe to the Atomic calendar. Both of them had a members perks area. The dashboard that I've come up with is how I would want a dashboard to be. But I wanted a library of files so that if you need to get something done and you do a monthly training with us, you just go to the library and you can just download the template.
Which is cool. I just wanted to park on that. And this is just another way of you surrounding your customer with support. I think I noticed in there was like Canva templates for like making an ebook or whatever.
Yeah.
So you keep solving what David Vogelful from WP Engine calls the most annoying problem on the internet, which is you buy something and then you have a blank screen. So like you're accelerating the path. What other kind of files are in there?
So there's Canva templates. There are things like, there's a Divi layout for, when you go to the link in your Instagram bio and people use something like Linktree.
Yeah.
But that's really glitchy. So I've made this special little iPhone only Divi layout, which is for instead of Linktree, which you can just, so things like that are annoying little problems that you actually don't quite know how to tackle. I've said, here, have this. So whenever we do a training and we do our live trainings, and during the training, yesterday we had a training on email marketing and people saying, yeah, but what I really need is a video showing me how to connect Gravity Forms and MailerLite and 17 hats. how do I make all of those three things work with Gravity Forms? So I was like, fine, today I'm making a video on that, and that will go into, the library, and I will probably, I might in the library then put a snippet of how to style your Gravity Form, a CSS snippet. So that's the kind of thing that we will put into the library. Just if there's a problem, any friction that's stopping my community moving forward, getting the job done and moving forward, that's what goes into the library. These little things which make life a lot easier.
How do you think about the difference between courses and these like trainings or webinars you do both yourself or with outside experts?
So we have the core courses, and this is interesting actually. I would actually love to have the fixes. I've actually created them, the monthly trainings. I've created a custom post type for them because I couldn't find a way to lay them out the way I wanted. If I'd done them as courses, I couldn't find a way to lay them out that was visually how I needed them to be. And at some point, I'm hoping there will be a way to do that, and I can then convert those custom post types actually to courses.
Are you saying because it's it's like a hour-long training or whatever versus like these short like step-by-step courses? They're a little different. Is that what you mean?
No, it was because they are one-off trainings, but a good example is yesterday, in the run-up to prepping for yesterday, I realized that in an hour, I couldn't actually cover everything I needed to do. So we had a training called the VIP inquiry experience yesterday. It was, how do you, when someone submits your contact form, what happens after that in a 14 to 21 day period to make you famous to them, for them to trust you as an expert, to be the person they want to book with? So how do you convert them from tire-kicking, price-driven person to a fan who wants to book you? So some of it is automation, some of it is personal marketing touches, some of it, there's all sorts of things. And I thought, we can cover the strategy in an hour, but I can't cover that everything. I physically need to show them how to set up a retargeting ad for Facebook. So some of it's very detailed. So what I've done is the monthly training goes into the library as a monthly training. I've quickly busted out a mini course in Lifter, which now appears in their courses area, and that's called the VI, and that's got all the steps one by one by one.
Nice. And how do you use your calendar? You have a calendar in there, and I guess you have live trainings going on. You have a lot for people to keep track of. Why was the calendar born? I love it. I think it's super cool. And what tools are you using for that?
Well, I went through a lot of testing here. First of all, I had a plugin like Event On, I think it was, and then I tried the events calendar. But I needed one where you could subscribe to all events with one click, and that was the only thing. None of them you could subscribe to individual events. But I needed people to see on their, whatever calendar tool they use, Google Calendar or iCal, all the events, because we have a monthly training. We repeat that training the next day in the evening for people who are in a different time zone. I just play it, but I come on at the end and at the beginning and the end to live host it and answer questions. And we also, in the other 2 weeks when we don't have live training, we do a live Q&A. So it's kind of like a mastermind hot seat. You bring any problem to the table and we all dive in together on Zoom and try and solve it. So I needed people to not miss events. So eventually I found a subscription service. I think it's like $7 a month, called Talkify. Nice. So it's an embedded Talkify calendar, and it had to sync with my Google Calendar. So I had to easily be able to schedule guest experts and stuff. So that was like a whole day of research to get there. And I also needed it to be able to look nice, which is obviously always my number one criteria.
I love your approach. It's not like it's time for me to go shopping for tools. You always have like this job to be done, or friction or pain to get out of the way, or to help your target customers speed up or accelerate. It's like a different approach that is it's very refreshing and not as common as you might think. What about the perks? So these are like, are these like special discounts you've negotiated with other tools that they need to be successful in your program, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and that's growing all the time. So I can't teach everything. I'm not a marketing expert about everything. So I bring in experts as our experts. So I've got a Facebook ads person, and like Kay comes in, we've got an Instagram person. When they come in, they can put a perk in the library, which is as it should be. Then common tools.
So there's a benefit to them coming to teach for free, kind of thing. Like they're getting exposure and they get a link with people that are going to be interested in them.
Yeah. Not everyone teaches for free. There's some big names there who I wouldn't have got them for free. It's perks you can't get somewhere else. You can only get them if you're a member.
That is super cool. What would you say has been the impact of LifterLMS on your life and your business?
Well, this is really phenomenally, like, teaching and leading a community has been a huge shift away. It's helped me to really, it makes sense. All the things I do, it makes sense of all the things I do. So, you know, the themes, the how to, and now the community and the marketing, it all seems to fit together in a really nice whole. And I couldn't have done it without a tool like LifterLMS. If that didn't exist, I'm sure I would have hacked together something similar. But actually, I really look for, let me just try and stop that phone from ringing.
Yeah, no problem.
So one thing I really look for in a community is that it's friendly and inclusive. So I have met everyone on the Divi team in person. The Show It team, I know. The Pro Photo team, I've met in person. I go out of my way to make friends with people whose tools I'm a heavy user of. So I couldn't see that personal touch in any of the other communities. And I could in yours. And that was what really kind of attracted me to it, really. And I thought, actually, this is a community that listens. Chris listens. You know, he's there in the community. He's very present, and that's how I run my community. So that was for me the deciding factor.
Wow, that's great to hear. Thank you for that. And maybe we will meet in person in Portugal at WordCamp Europe.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
That would be cool. What's next? Like, like, you've got the marketing fix, and that's like, how is this project going to evolve? Are you just going to keep adding value, keep bringing in experts, or is there something else you've got planned after this, or what's happening in the next 1 to 3 years, if you know?
Yeah, I've got a little bit of, well, yeah, I always have a master plan, but I want, obviously I want to grow the membership, and I have a figure in mind, which I think would be in a kind of a good balance. So obviously we can keep adding value with every month that passes. So, you know, there's always something new. So Alison, who's coming in to do Facebook ads, in 6 months' time, I'm going to want her back in again because a lot will have changed. Yeah. So the membership is something that I want them to be member of forever, because things are always changing. There's always new value. The library's going to grow. And our community, you've been in our group now, and it's just so lovely. People are really open about what they share. It feels like a really safe environment, and people have told me it's, you know, I'm now starting to, when I go to conferences and things, and this is my next big thing, is I've been meeting quite a few members in person, and we do lots of fun things like Member of the Month, and they get a gift, and, you know, so I want to do more of that. So my next thing will be some version of the Marketing Fix Live. There'll be a live event later this year.
Like a small mastermind retreat, or like or it's a value add to what you've already got going that's included or whatever?
I'm going to ask the membership. They're going to tell me what they want, and then I'll do what I want, because that's what I do. I always see what they want.
That is brilliant.
I think we'll be open to, in my head, I'm looking at 2 days, or 1 day that's open to non-members too, and I'll bring in some speakers, and then a second day, which is members only mastermind, limited number of places.
That's cool.
I don't know. I need to survey the community and do what they
I love that. It's not about pushing product. It's about pulling, you know, listening and pulling and hearing where the friction is and what they want. Who else are your influences, or what, like, if somebody wants to level up on design, you know, what are some resources that have had a big impact on you? Maybe books, or just people to follow on YouTube or whatever.
Well, in the early years, there were a lot of design blogs I followed, and my big one was Spoon Graphics, Chris Spooner. Okay. He was a huge influence of mine, and I remember quite early on I reached out to him and said, "Listen, I'm thinking about launching themes as someone who has monetized what they do successfully." I remember going to his about page, and it said, "I'm not taking on any new clients because I'm busy running Spoon Graphics," and I was like, oh my God, you can make money off the internet. I was like, this is a thing. You don't have to just work with clients. So that really kickstarted me. I'd been following so many of his tutorials. Then when I was going to launch something, I reached out to him, and he replied, and he was so kind and said, look, do this. Here's my advice, blah, blah, blah. And I remember I met him at a design conference about 2 years ago, and I was like, oh my God, I'm such a massive fan. He's like, but I know who you are. And I was like,
that's
he's
awesome.
Like, you're an internet entrepreneur now, you did it. So he's like such a big, it was like meeting a rock star. So a couple of people like him really influenced me, and because he's got impeccable design skills as a graphic designer, but he also runs line 24. He's a coder as well. So I was like, oh, this is amazing. You can be both.
That's awesome. Well, we're gonna do a quick lightning round just for fun. So
Okay.
short, punchy answers. What advice do you have for people who are making a featured image for their course?
Oh, be consistent. I've just moved on to doing square images. I don't know if that's the kind of.
No, that's it. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
What, a lot of people who create courses and membership sites work from home. And as a designer, if you're listening to this podcast episode, I'd encourage you to come on over to the YouTube version on the LifterLMS YouTube channel. I can see your office. It's beautiful. It's how can we design our workspace to be more inspiring, less stressful, and more creative?
If you can, try and make a little space your own. For a long time, I was working in kind of a spare bedroom, and it never. And one day I went away, and my husband kindly had moved me into like a very tiny room in the house, which previously was some kind of storage cupboard, but it was all painted white, and it was really beautiful. It was my little space where I could just about close the door behind. So if you can carve out a little space somewhere, even if it's just a corner of a room, maybe put up a screen, or and paint a square of the floor, and just. I love coming into my office, and these days I've got a whole kind of big room and it's lovely, but I just started small in a tiny corner, but I've always made that corner my own.
What role do words and copywriting play in design?
Oh, massive. In fact, I work really closely with a copywriter, and she does her best work when she can see a layout from me so she can infer the personality of the design. And
so does the copy come before the design process, or they kind of work together, or how does it work?
They very much work together. We were just chatting about this today because the client I'm working with today, she got the copy through, and I know that my copywriter Kat was saying, yeah, but I need a bit more. I'd like to see where Melissa's going with this. I've now just sent through the first draft. She's like, my mind's on fire. I've got it. So she can now do the second iteration because she can see the personality of the design. And I know that's not helpful because not everyone works with a copywriter, but we both do our best work when we're working in rounds together at the same time.
That's awesome. Well, Melissa Love, she's at the marketingfix.co. She's also at the designspace.co. Thank you for being a shining example of somebody using LifterLMS. And really, you're the reason we do what we do, but more importantly, your customer or your learner is who I see ourselves serving. You're making a big impact, and you're helping other designers, which is a beautiful thing. And helping people build careers and be able to create these valuable products and services. So it's a beautiful thing. Any final words for the people, or any other ways people can connect with you?
Yeah, they can. I've got an open Facebook group called the Design Space Lounge. And I've also, if you are a designer wanting I've got a ton of training for you guys. There's another Facebook group called Grow Your Web Design Business with Melissa Love. Just come into a couple of my free groups. There's so many kind of Facebook Lives we've done. We have guest experts into all of those groups, design-led guest experts. So just come and connect with me online, friend me, follow me on Instagram. I've got so much free content that I can give to you, which I happily will do.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'll see you soon. And I'm looking forward to kind of releasing kind of Lifter themes soon. So I'm no doubt we'll be chatting lots.
Yeah, that sounds great. And that's a wrap for this episode of LMScast. I'm your guide, Chris Badgett. I hope you enjoyed the show. This show was brought to you by LifterLMS, the #1 tool for creating, selling, and protecting engaging online courses to help you get more revenue, freedom, and impact in your life. Head on over to LifterLMS.com and get the best gear for your course creator journey. Let's build the most engaging, results-getting courses on the internet.